Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment comes from the Deathbeat, aka Gary, and this is in response to what's this channel all about? A video I redid in August 2021 when I was reformatting a number of things for the channel. Very interesting, John. I got into synths in the late 80s after my parents bought me an Amiga 500. Yeah, which led me to getting into the early tracker sequences, including Optimal and Pro Tracker. Eventually I discovered the rave scene and wanted to fill my parents' house with all devices that Liam Howlett was showing off in a feature that that Future Music did on the Prodigy in 1993. The JX3P was my first purchase, which was bought with money I made from sweeping stairs at the British Standards Institute in Hemel Hempstead in the evenings after school. Those were the days. And those were the days indeed. I mean, my job was, I was a groundsman. That was my part-time job when I was at school. I was a groundsman. Thoroughly enjoyed it, learnt to drive. Hi Gary. Basically, you got into sequencing far before me. I mean, I skipped the Amiga and Atari ST, and in 1995 went straight to a piece. Excuse me. For the PC with a copy of Cubase. I can remember going and buying a copy of buying Cubase. It was damn expensive at the time. And I think if I'd gone through the Amiga or the Atari, then I might have had a better experience, because I found Cubase daunting as a beginner, I have to be honest. It was such a beast, and you know, you required a computer of a certain standard to actually make the damn thing work. And of course, remember back in those days, Cubase was just a sequencer. You didn't have the whole concept of a DAW wasn't a DAW back in those days. The PC I had wasn't really optimized for running Cubase, whereas you know, the Amiga and the Atari ST were really sort of, that's what they, you know, apart from playing games, the other side of the Amiga and the Atari ST was to make music. In fact, I keep thinking about getting a second-hand Amiga. I have to be honest, I keep thinking about getting a second-hand Amiga. I watched the Retro Man Cave quite a lot, and you know, he's had Amigas and Atari STs on his video channel in the last year or so. So I keep thinking about it, and I haven't quite got around to putting my hand in my pocket. Plus the fact I'm broke anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. But I do think when I get the studio set up in the new year, it's looking like it's going to be sort of March time next year before I get my plans come to fruition. But hopefully at that point in time, I might think about, assuming I've got some money, buying one of these platforms and doing some videos. I've got a load of videos I need to do on the CX5M, which is down in storage at the moment. So there's a load of stuff to be done, load of stuff to come to the channel when I can get around to making it. The next question or comment comes from Denver Morgan, and this was in response to video 2, how to restore the Roland D-70 using SysX. Again, I know I did this video. I haven't written down on some of these what date I did the video, but I know this was sort of spring, summer 2021. And Denver writes, "Hi, just curious, is it not possible to scroll through the presets with the jog wheel on the D-70? It seems the only way to select patches is by the bank and patch numbers on this keyboard. It seems so counterintuitive.
as you would expect this to work on the same as it does on other keyboards and other UIs. But they don't work on this keyboard. Boom, ba boom, ba boom. I think this is clearly a case of the left-hand R&D team not talking to the right-hand R&D team, because Roland introduced the jog wheel onto a number of synths around this time, and what's really interesting is that they all work slightly differently. But the synths of this era just are really not that sophisticated in terms of the user interface. You know, you restore sounds from a SysX dump, they restore into positions they were originally created in. You can't move them easily as part of the restore process. There are some librarian programs out there that do allow you to reorder and manipulate and recut a SysX file. But in general terms, you can't do that on the synth. You have to do that in software on a computer. Or you can move the tones around on the synth. And this is a generic statement, so don't shoot the messenger. Once they're actually uploaded. But of course, you always have to give something up to do that, because you have to create a slot to move a tone into the slot, if that makes any sense. So yeah, if you want to do some sort of, like, you know, move the patches around, you have to use a librarian. It's as simple as that. The only thing I would say is that if you're going to go and get librarians for older synths, please be careful when you're downloading stuff from the internet, because you don't know who has been at the executable files before they came into your possession, and therefore they could contain malware, and that could be it. Your computer could be keyboxed. As I said, you know, you can recut the SysX with the librarian, but going back to the jog wheel is really interesting. So on the D-70, the jog wheel is really a parameter entry mechanism. Whereas if you go and look at some of the other synths that kind of were about the same time or slightly later, what they do is they allow you to scroll through parameters with the jog wheel, and this is kind of the inconsistency of the UI between these particular synths. There's not a lot of difference in terms of how the panels are laid out, in terms of, you know, the buttons, etc, etc. It's just the way the synths are laid out. Now I wonder with the D-70 what they were trying to do was they were trying to retain the look and feel of the D series, and the D series was very heavily sort of this bank and patch kind of concept. And I do wonder whether with the D-70 they were trying to retain that, even though the D-70 is not a D series synth, if that makes sense, because the D-70 is much more of a Roppler synth rather than a creation synth. So on the 5, 10, 20 and 50, you created the synths by altering the parameters of how the sound is generated. Whereas when we came to the 70, even though it has a D series tag to it, if you actually look at how it works, you load a sample into, or you load a patch into the D-70, which is constructed of a sample up front, and then you are then allowed to play around with the sort of decay and the envelope parameters, but you can't play around with how the sound was generated, and that I think is one of the downfalls of the D-70. But I do think that the reason why it sort of works that way is because they were trying to fool the public at the time that the D-70 was the next super duper D series synth. And don't get me wrong, the D-70 is a cracking synth. It's just not a D series synth.